Tech billionaire and 70s sex icon Kevin O'Leary, aka Mr. Wonderful, was once Bitcoin's biggest skeptic. He even went as far as calling Bitcoin a scam.
Where is the intrinsic value that they're going to cut the number of units in half? Such a scam.
Fast forward just a few months and now he's almost the poster boy for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency investing, having 20% of his own personal net worth invested in crypto. Why? So I want to show you exactly what event flipped Mr. Wonderful, and better than that, exactly where he allocated his money to make the biggest returns for himself. Smash the like button below for the YouTube culture and let's jump in. So most people know Kevin from Shark Tank, but no one talks about how he sold his company for billions of dollars in the first place. Well, he founded his company in 1986 in the basement of his house with a loan from his own mom of $10,000. He called the company SoftKey Software. And basically they acquired a bunch of learning softwares and bundled them on CD-ROMs to sell them in retail stores. And apparently, Kevin even invented the rotating CD shelf, so he could display 3 times more CDs given his limited square footage in the retail store. That's big brain. They quickly became in 1992 the fastest growing company in Canada with sales of $36.8 million. And then after taking the company public, he actually sold it to Mattel, the big toy company, for 3.7 big boys. That's billions. Now unapologetically rich, Kevin opened a new chapter of his life. To keep his money working hard, he took control of his wealth from his lackluster money managers and founded his own mutual fund company, O'Leary Fund. And this of course is how he ended up on the TV show Shark Tank, where he's invested over $8 million across 40 businesses that have appeared on the show. Biggest investment win so far was this one.
Had some really big winners. Plated, one of my deals, got sold to Albertson, the grocery chain, for $300 million. That's the biggest exit in Shark Tank history.
Awesome. So Kevin comes from a software and a financial background. You'd think he would be the perfect person to adopt crypto and really start investing quickly. Well, you'd be wrong, because he wasn't. Remember that clip at the start?
Bitcoin. I tried to do some real estate in Switzerland with it once. It is a useless currency. It is a useless currency.
He was extremely skeptical all the way through to early 2021, but now sings a completely different tune. In fact, he goes as far to say that crypto will actually be the 12th sector of the US economy.
I predict in the next 10 years that crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin, all of this innovation will be the 12th sector of the S&P.
And he says his conviction is 100%. That's pretty wild. He personally has 33 different positions in cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency assets. And like I said at the start, 20% of his net worth invested in them. So here are the 3 events and statistics that changed Kevin's mind from skeptic to fanboy, and exactly what's in his current portfolio. Kevin says the biggest moment that changed his mind with cryptocurrencies was when legislation passed in Canada and countries like Switzerland that actually allowed a Bitcoin ETF fund. As a money manager, he says he sees some incredibly wealthy companies, including the wealthiest and richest people in the world with hundreds of billions of dollars of assets looking for diversification. He gives the example of Saudi oil company. And he says despite their desire, they're not actually allowed to invest in things like crypto because it's not compliant with legislation yet.
But what we're missing is policy. When we get policy and the regulator regulates, that's not a negative thing. The spigots of capital are going to flood into this sector like you've never seen.
He goes on to say if these companies invested just 1% of their diversification portfolio into things like crypto and Bitcoin, an extra $1 trillion would be entering the market, which is absolutely massive considering the entire market right now is valued at under $1 trillion. That would have an insane effect on this industry. The second biggest thing after legislation, he says that blockchain is a software and not a currency. And we know Kevin has a really good background in software from the 90s. He says that things like Ethereum and Solana and Polygon, you can't view them as a currency, you should be seeing them as a productivity software.
It is not a coin, it's software. Ethereum is software. Avalanche is software. Helium is software. Solana is software. It's all software. And the smartest hands over keyboards today in the world are developing on the chain and bringing innovation to financial services, which in the end is the largest sector on earth.
He not only uses this technology to get paid, but he says he deals with a lot of international transfers in his business, and they now use USDC coin, a stablecoin backed 1-to-1 with US dollar. Actually, this time. He says the transfer from say Canada to Switzerland happens almost instantaneously, costs very little fees, and he doesn't have to wait on bank transfers, bank approvals, and 3-day wire time. He goes on to liken crypto to almost any other software company on the New York Stock Exchange. He says if you're buying Microsoft, well then why aren't you buying tech like crypto? He then goes on to address the volatility of crypto. because unlike stocks, the volatility is pretty crazy. But he says if you recall to the early 2000s, in the first few years that Amazon was publicly traded, it went up and down 30 to 90% every single year until people really understood the tech behind the company. And number 3. Young talent and graduates are all wanting to work on the blockchain. Kevin says that over 30% of software and engineering graduates, brightest minds in the countries from the top colleges, all want to go and work on the blockchain. And like Mark Andreessen, he believes that when you gather the smartest minds, engineers, and visionaries around the power of a new technology, it's impossible to project the innovation that they're going to create. So with all this said, what exactly is Kevin investing in? Well, Kevin is wealthy enough to be able to network with the top dogs in the crypto space. He says he just flies out top founders when he wants to invest in their companies to talk to them and ask them questions. So what did the answers of these questions lead him to putting his money into? Well, he buys a lot of crypto token, tens of millions of dollars worth. He says Ethereum is his biggest holding, followed by Bitcoin, and then in no particular order, Polygon, Solana, AVAX, HBAR, and USDC. He doesn't just invest in these crypto tokens, but the assets and infrastructure that underlies this entire industry. He's a big investor in FTX, Circle, the people who run USDC, and even NFT.com. Obviously, he's a big fan of Sam Bankman-Fried. And speaking of NFTs, I'll tell you exactly what Mr. Wonderful thinks of them if you hit that subscribe button below. A little bonus for you, because the answer might actually surprise you. Roll the clip.
I actually believe that the potential for the NFT market is actually larger than Bitcoin. If I could turn all of my watches into NFTs, and in that way I could let my insurance company know, look, these are the 10 that are out of the vault this week. Bid me on insurance just for these 10. Authentication, every time I sell that watch, the scan of its dial, which is down at the micron level attached to the NFT, would authenticate it. You could rescan it and prove that it was the original watch. So for that kind of thing, same with real estate, same with fine jewelry, same with pens, same with cars, all of this is going to move onto the chain.